Welcome! We're here with some coverage from Big Sunday Legacy at Magic Corner Vienna. And joining me today is Michi.
And joining me today is Walter.
And we got an interesting matchup here. We got Dominic Hammer on the left. He's playing Bug Shadow, which is one of the few ways you can play a blue Legacy deck that does not have dual lands, because you're playing all shocklands.
And on the right hand side we have Infect with Forceful, Invigorate and, well, Infect counters.
And yeah, so this is one of the classic Legacy matchups where we have an interactive fair deck versus a combo deck. But we got a twist here, I feel, because the interactive deck here is pretty aggressive as well, with Death Shadow being able to deal a lot of damage. And the combo deck is very interactive as well, with, like you said, Michi, it has access to Force of Will, it has access to Daze 2, and it's creature based. So what do you think of this matchup?
I think it depends on how many disruptive spells Dominic plays. I haven't seen his build yet, so I think he might play Force of Will, Push 2, and if David can protect his creatures, or maybe Dominic can overrun his with his Death Shadows.
I also think he will definitely have access to 4 Thought Seizes, because they synergize very well with his game plan, and also there is one card that you can play in Legacy Death Shadow, but you can't play in Modern. Gitaxian Probe.
Oh,
so that's
yeah.
also kind of sweet. I think this is kind of important in this matchup, because having Gitaxian Probe gives you access to information, and I feel like playing against Infect, having the information to sculpt your game plan makes it a lot easier, because you're not playing too defensively and you're not dying out of nowhere.
This is true, but isn't Infect playing Gitaxian Probe 2 in Legacy, or?
They play some probes, I'm pretty sure of, but not the full set normally. So but I feel like the probe is maybe even better against Infect than with Infect, because against Infect, especially with Invigorate and Berserk, the Infect deck with just the 2-card combo here in Legacy can deal the full 10 poison as early as turn 2.
Yes, this is something you gotta respect if you play against Infect in Legacy. And on the other hand, Infect can also disrupt the opponent's mana base with Wasteland.
Yes, sometimes they usually play a crop rotation package with at least one Wasteland main, sometimes more Wastelands in the side. And here we have our players drawing their opening hands and the game's about to start.
Dominic on the play with his Bug Shadow deck, fetching with Bloodstained Mire 4. We will see.
An untapped Shockland, I assume.
Yeah, well, I assume too, and it's Watery Grave. Not as often in Legacy, but very good in a Shadow build.
Yeah, I think there was Josh Atterlayton played a Shadow build at an SG opener GP, and he was playing just blue-black, and he was playing 1 Underground Sea. I don't think Dominic has access to it, but I don't think it hurts him that much in this matchup, because his opponent doesn't want to kill him with damage anyways.
Yeah, well, with Invigorate giving him 4 life, this can be good in this matchup too.
And here we have the starting hand, revealed by Thoughtseize. David's starting hand has 2 copies, 2 promo Glistener Elves, a Brainstorm, 3 lands, and a Daze. So I think this hand needs some work, don't you agree? Yeah,
it's not pretty aggressive, I would say. David needs to draw into something.
Here's 1 Pendelhaven here, the middle of the lands revealed here, which is the only source of pump here. But it's Legacy. A Brainstorm can fix
everything in an instant.
Exactly. But so Dominic quickly chose one of the Glistener Elves, so he probably just wants to deprive David of any Infect creatures.
Or maybe he doesn't have removal.
Or he has removal but wants to make sure that his removal sticks, so to speak.
Oh, what a top deck. He drew another one.
He had 2 in his hand.
He had 2? I'm sorry, I did not see that.
He had 2 and he discarded 1. And now the second one is being played, but like what we saw, it's just protected by Daze here. So if Dominic just plays a land on the removal spell, and he's just going to Daze here.
Yes, with Forceful backup, or?
Dazing with Shocklands feels so bad, but again in this matchup is not a huge issue, but generally speaking here, Dazing with this is not fun, and yeah, David Daze is back.
Do we see a Force of Will? No.
No, David stays resolved. Dominic is on the play again. Both players have no lands again. But David has the Glistener Elf in play. Dominic replaces Watery Grave here. Let's see what he can do.
And goes down to 15 life. Or, no, 13 life. And we see a Deathrite Shaman. Okay. David is drawing. No lands in play. What will he do?
Yeah, Deathrite Shaman is...
Yeah.
Deathrite Shaman is kind of nice here because it provides him with the mana advantage here, and because both players stays, they both put themselves back a turn, and now Dominic has access to more mana. Because what we saw, David really wants to brainstorm. He wants to brainstorm and shuffle it away. So if he brainstorms, he pretty much can't brainstorm effectively this turn. So if he plays land now and he wants to shuffle away cards, he can only brainstorm next turn. And with Pendelhaven, he can't even brainstorm next turn because Pendelhaven doesn't produce blue mana.
Yeah, this is quite true. So maybe we'll see a bump here. No, we see a... Oh, he drew another one. Nice.
The third copy of Glistener Elf here. So basically it looks like David doesn't even care for sculpting his hand. He just wants to attack Dominic as quickly as possible, which is nice because the Pendelhaven allows those Glistener Elves to get through the Deathrite Shaman. Normally this is quite annoying if they get blocked. And Dominic has to figure something out here.
Yes, he needs quite some removal to solve the situation, and David is sitting on Force of Will Brainstorm backup.
But right now, Dominic is only at 1 poison, so he needs to get... But Dominic is missing his second land drop here.
Oh,
it just
yes.
passes.
Yeah, luckily he played Deathrite Shaman. Otherwise, this would be a really bad situation for him. And we will see an attack now with Pendelhaven backup and a block. Okay, will Deathrite Shaman die, or do we see a removal?
I'm pretty sure he has to do something here, otherwise this block is not nice. It's a Berserk on his Deathrite Shaman. Because Dominic plays Berserk himself, because with those huge Death Shadows, you can easily kill your opponent in one swing just with casting Berserk on them. So Berserk, for those who are not familiar with Legacy, it doubles the creature's power and gives it trample, but you have to sacrifice the creature at the end of combat. Infect sometimes can also use it as a pseudo removal spell, not just a pump spell. And I think Dominic is opting for at least one copy in his deck here.
But you can only play it during combat, or am I wrong?
You can only play it during combat, and do you know what happened here? Pendelhaven doesn't give +1/+1, it gives +1/+2, so the Deathrite Shaman just died because it got turned into a 2/1, and it still didn't beat the 2/3 Glistener Elf in combat, so it was a slight misstep by Dominic here.
Devastating misstep, I would say.
Yeah, we just want to be nice to our players. And the Death Shadow is getting cast here, which is a T2 currently.
Yes. We see a brainstorming response, I would say. Or, yes, should be in response. How many cards does David has in his hand? 1? 2?
No, he had 2 up to 5 with the brainstorm down to 3, so we see what he's going to put back here. He has to redraw one of his cards, so he has the opportunity to shuffle over one of them. It's not a perfect brainstorm, but it's still, depending on what he draws, it's quite serviceable here, especially regarding that Dominic's start was pretty clunky and he kind of threw away his Deathrite Shaman for not a lot of gain here.
But Dominic still has 3 cards in hand, no land, as we know. Maybe he's still in the game, we will see soon. He just needs some removal to solve this situation, and maybe a few bad draws from David.
The Death Shadow is quite nice because if he gets to deal himself more damage, it's quite the blocker against those Glistener Elves, and depending on how much life he loses, and now we see the Death Shadow is not happening, so it's just getting forced, so this blocking option is not going to take place. And this looks like a Gurmag Angler to me, very strongly. And
yes, it is.
So we got a Zombie Fish, which is still a very good blocker against those 1/1s, but with just an Invigorate, even just Invigorate being cast on a Naked Invigorate would just have a Glistener Elf trade, but Pendelhaven and Invigorate would allow a Glistener Elf to get through the blocker here. So we'll see if David is able to find one Invigorate here with this brainstorm.
This would be a very good draw, or would have been a very good brainstorm from David's side, and he's currently fetching for a Tropical. And going down to 16, I would say, or has he already rolled the dice?
He has cast 2 fetch lands and a Force of Will.
So he's going down to
17 is
Oh,
7.
Okay.
I'm
yes.
pretty sure he's at 17 right now. The live totals we have displayed here on our nice big D20s are correct.
Great. So we will see what his turn is.
If you drill Invigorate, you can just swing in with both here and eat the Gurmag Angler and deal the damage. If he has more than one Invigorate, he might just kill Dominic here. We'll see. If he doesn't have any pump, he's not sure. Yeah, he's pondering.
Oh, pondering, okay. Great spell. We will see what he draws. Is there an Invigorate?
There's a crop rotation here to the
yes.
right, which is able to get a Inkmoth Nexus here, which can circumvent the Angler due to its evasion.
Yes. A pretty nasty card. Will he go for it? Or...
We see, wasn't sure what the other cards he was
no,
looking
sadly
at
we
were
could not
here.
see what the other cards were.
But he has decided for one card out of the ponder.
Yes.
He's just double checking if he really wants to draw the card, and then we will be able to see what he's up to pretty soon here. But he's still resolving the ponder here. The card on the right with his hand is still resolving the ponder. We have the crop rotation to the right here and 2 other cards he's considering.
What could be in these cards that would make it that difficult?
Probably those cards were bad because he drew the crop rotation, which lets him shuffle away the other cards, but we see. So he's attacking with both creatures here. We have the block. Yeah, we have the player I was talking about. He has 1 Invigorate, which means the Pendelhaven pumps up the Glistener to 2-3, and the Invigorate pumps up to 6-7. Angler gets 8 and 1 Infect goes, 1 poison goes through, which means that he didn't have access to another pump spell because that would have been lethal here.
Yes, but I think maybe he drew the Invigorate.
Yes. Yeah, because it looks kind of... But there was definitely crop rotation in there too. So yeah, maybe he was considering if he wants to Invigorate
but I
first.
think the Invigorate was the right draw. Because his opponent was tapped out. He did not force of will his force of will, so most likely no counter spells.
I 100% agree with you here, because now Dominic's blocker is gone. We see Dominic casting the probe for life, because his life doesn't really matter, and we see, no, he had the Invigorate in hand, he drew the crop rotation off the ponder, and now he's out of gas a bit. David's out of gas here. He can crop rotation for the Inkmoth Nexus, but he still needs to deal a full 4, but Dominic does not have access to a blocker here. And end of turn, we see crop rotation, which is getting force pitching force.
Yes, because Dominic most likely doesn't want David to get an Nexus.
Yeah, that would just... I mean, it's the same clock here.
No, not really. 1 damage or... Oh, yeah, okay.
No, getting the Nexus would have been lethal this turn, so no, it's not the same clock.
Oh.
It's actually a big difference here, because he's already up to 9 poison, and having the Nexus here would put him to 10. But it's not looking good for Dominic here, I would say.
No. Okay. Dominic scoops it up, and we're going to the first round with sideboards. So, what do you think the Infect player has in his sideboard for this matchup?
So some Infect lists have a slight white splash with the Savannah either in the main or in the side and some Swords to Plowshares. That's pretty sweet tech. That would be amazing. We see Bojuka Bok getting in there, which can also be fetched with the crop rotation we saw earlier. That's very nice. I would also definitely consider this dismember we see here. Pithing Needle against Deathwatch Shaman might be worth it. This is... It might have been a copy of... I have no idea what that card was, I'm sorry. We see the second crop rotation, which Infect normally plays to have access to a larger land package, which would be very nice because it can get the Bojuka Bok, which can fight Dominic's graveyard reliance, make it harder to cast those Gurmag Anglers and use those Deathwatch Shamans. I'm not sure how effective it is. And for Dominic here, any disruption he has access to any sideboard is very nice against Infect. Whether it be removal, counter spells, or also additional land shade if he has access to any of these to deal with the next side.
So we see at least one Deathwatch Shaman getting boarded out. Did you see what he's boarding in? No.
I'm not sure if the Deathwatch Shaman, if I would board out Deathwatch Shaman, it gives you access to Sylvan Library. Is considering boarding out Sylvan Library, which might be a bit slow in this matchup, but can provide a long-term advantage.
Yes, true.
He's also considering boarding out Street Wraiths, which I think are just those cards when you're not completely sure they're easily trimmable. So we see more Street Wraiths coming out here from Dominic, still considering sideboarding, while David seems quite confident in what he's doing here.
One Dark Confident gets out, or am I missing something? Yes, I think one Dark Confident gets out. Excuse me, not Dark Confident, Death Shadow, of course. My mistake. No,
yeah, I don't think he's playing Dark Confident in a deck with the Gurmag Anglers would be quite ambitious. Also Dark Confident, I love the card, but hasn't seen much play in Legacy lately. It used to be a staple in some Delver lists and some other builds like Dead Guy Ale, but all of those decks have fallen out of favor. So I haven't seen a Dark Confident played in Legacy in quite a while, which is sad, but if I would try the card, I don't think a Shadow list with Anglers would be the first place.
No. Losing 7 life on the draw, I think it's not an ideal place to be.
No, you want to lose life with Shadow, but you want to have control over how much life you lose when.
Yes.
Because the randomness, even in Modern, the Death Shadow Dark Confident combo has been tried by a few players, but it just has intrinsic randomness that makes it quite risky.
Yes, and there are better cards to play. More consistent cards to play.
Which is kind of sad, because you would think that Dark Confidence synergizes with Shadow so well. It's a sweet card in itself, but there's some other cards, mostly those Delph cards, really put a lock through that plan.
Yes, but the Delph cards have their advantages and their synergies with the deck on the other side.
Yeah, those Delph cards are amazing in Modern and in Legacy. The Gurmag Anglers and the Tassigurs are very, very good. There's more Gurmag Anglers in Legacy because you're not getting to 4 mana to activate Tassigur that often, so generally speaking, in most decks, Gurmag Angler always gets the not over Tassigur in Legacy.
Yes.
Because mana is tighter, games are shorter.
So has David finished sideboarding? Yes, I think so. Yeah, both players are shuffling up. And yeah.
What do you think happened here in game 1 regarding Dominic's keep? What was he hoping for? Because he missed his second land drop. He had a couple of probes. Did he just get unlucky here?
Maybe he got unlucky. I played Death Shadow in Modern, and sometimes you can keep hands with one land and some card draw, and it works out pretty fine, and sometimes you just never see another land.
Yeah, sometimes you cycle a probe, not in Modern, but in Legacy now, a Street Wraith, and they just draw you more cyclers or non-land cards, and then you have a card that has a pretty good theoretical chance of hitting that second land, but if you don't hit it, your mathematical chance doesn't do anything for you. Just kind of dead in Legacy and in Modern if you miss your second land drop in those situations.
Yes, but luckily he had Death Shannon.
Yeah, which unfortunately had a slight misstep, because he probably intrinsically thought that Pendelhaven just gives +1/+1, and it would have been a decent trade for him because he needed to get rid of both those Glisten Elves at some point. So trading the Shadow and the Berserk for one would have been okay, but because it wasn't a trade, it was just a jump. He just 2-for-0'd himself in this situation, and that was kind of the final thing that happened here in this game. Now we see Dominic's opening has a couple forces, couple Street Waves, one land. This looks like exactly one of those hands you described. That's a bit of a random bag. He drew another land, he cycles yet another Street Wraith, and he drew a copy Fatal Push, which is pretty good here.
Nice. Playing a Fetchland Polluted Delta, turn 1, down to 16 life. Okidaxium Probe from David.
Yeah, I think that Dominic here in those matchups...
2 Fatal Push, 1 Force of Will, and
Abrupt Decay. So all we're missing here is a Shadow, because I think that Dominic also wants to get a Shadow online quite fast here. You don't want to give Infect more time to draw the pump spells and the creatures, but this hand has all the disruption you can ask for pretty much. Yes. Force Pitching Force is fine, so pretty much all he wants to do is draw a threat here, and he has the ability to go down to 10 life just with his 2 fetch lands, so Shadow is already a 3/3, so he doesn't really need to draw any more cards that make him lose life.
Pretty nice. So starting with a Noble Hierarch and a Pendelhaven.
I would definitely kill this end of turn here. The Hierarch is very good because the deck is mana tied and also it's exalted. So it's kind of a split card, a pump spell and a mana dork. Also, David, we're not sure out of Dominic's perspective, we can't for sure say that David has access to blue mana. So that might also be a consideration that you kill the Hierarch because it makes blue mana.
Dominic doesn't want his opponent David to play 2 spells a turn.
Nope.
Really not in this matchup. He wants to take care of all of his creatures one by one because he has no mana dorks, no Deathrite Shaman. Maybe he boarded them out. And we see Misty Rainforest being drawn by Dominic.
Yeah, now Dominic is another turn without the creature, so this might get a bit annoying. Out of David we see an Inkmoth here and a Glistener Elf, so we have in one turn 2 threats added to the board. He can deal with the Glistener Elf straight away now if he wants to, with probably the Abrupt Decay because it's more mana efficient than using the push here. And basically Dominic here wants to start using his start using his removal spells first and keep those forces for spells later, because you cannot kill pump spells with removal spells, obviously,
not really.
but you can kill creatures with removal spells. So the force is a broader answer than the removal spells.
Yes, and by playing his Abrupt Decay now, he has enough mana open for maybe upcoming days from David's side.
Definitely not that David can daze, because his mana base right now is very islandless with just a Pendelhaven and Ink with Nexus here.
Yes.
So this is looking very good for Dominic, but there's still the risk that he just can't draw a threat in a while, and David can draw out of his clunky start here. But we see a Gangler here straight away now, off the top, with 2 mana up, with Force of Will protection and access to that Fatal Push. So right now Dominic's hand, if I'm right, is 3 cards, 2 forces and a Fatal Push here. Yeah, and this is looking pretty good. Yeah.
Really, really pretty good. But David is still on 18 life, and Dominic already on 7. Luckily, it doesn't matter in this matchup. And we see here David deciding not to attack because of the Fatal Push in his opponent's hand. Dominic attacks David. David goes down to 13 life, draws a card. I think it was crop rotation.
Yeah, it was crop rotation. But this is you can crop rotate your Pendelhaven away for a tropical island so that you have access to blue. But he doesn't even want to do this. The annoying thing is David knows everything. David has the perfect information from that turn 1 attacks him, probably. He knows about the 2 forces. I think Dominic drew a 3rd force for his turn here, which doesn't make things easier. Definitely a 3rd force here in his hand. Ouch.
Yeah, but David drew his Tropical Island. Finally, but maybe it's too late.
David has to try to set up a kill next turn here.
Yes.
Basically trying to block and trade, or block and pump and eat the Angler is probably not going to lead to much success here.
No, not really. You don't want to be on jump blocking mode with Infect. It's not really what this deck is best known for.
No, especially not when your jump blocker is Inkmoth Nexus, which is a land and also needs mana to activate. So it's the worst kind of jump block you could make in the Infect deck. I'd rather jump block with an additional Glistener Elf that you don't really need.
Yeah, this is true. So, what are we going to see from David's side?
We see a Blighted Agent here, which probably might already be on jump blocking duty. The thing is with the Blighted Agent and the Pendelhaven, if you block the Gangler here, if your Blighted Agent doesn't get killed, then you at least put 2 -1/-1 counters on the fish, shrink it a little.
Yes, and we see, I think, another Gangler from Dominic's side.
Yeah, so we have an attack here, a block, and just a jump. No attempt to Pendelhaven it, no attempt from Dominic to do anything about it. So the Gangler is now a 4/4, and Dominic just passes, and we see a Surgical on the Blighted Agent here.
Nice. So it was a Surgical, not the Gangler which you drew?
Yeah.
So,
in his draw step, yeah, so there was some timing issues, so David drew his card first. And we see his hand here. We have 2 Invigorates, a Become Immense, a Berserk, a Force of Will, and a Brainstorm, and that mysterious card from the sideboard, which is a Mixstone, which is really sweet. Mixstone means the creatures with power 3 or more, it's an artifact, creatures with power 3 or more don't untap. And if Dominic, he already used 1 Abrupt Decay, this can be really annoying because it means that he can just be locked from attacking with his creatures, because any shadow he draws is an 8-8 now. His Gangers are already bigger. So this is nice. Yeah, Dominic is reading the Mixstone. I just know this card because a friend of mine played it in casual kitchen table Magic about more than 10 years ago. And it's pretty sweet, can be annoying against those big creature decks, and it's some tech that Infect sometimes plays as one-off in the sideboard, and it might get Dominic by surprise here.
Yeah, it might do that, but we will see how this situation turns out.
Yeah, right now the Blighted Agents are gone from the deck now,
yes.
So David still has access to 3 Glistener Elves and 4 Inkmoth Nexi, one of them being play here as Infect threats, because obviously Legacy does not have access to any Infect threats, Modern doesn't.
Maybe we'll see a Mixstone getting down there.
Yeah, but Dominic has those 3 forces, so it depends. If he drew another blue card, he can double force, that which would...
He drew Surgically this turn, I think.
That would be because he knows that David, if he forces, David can force back. And then if he doesn't have another blue card to pitch to the second force, then the Mixstone is just going to resolve.
Yes.
But the Mixstone just means that the creatures don't untap. So the Mixstone is annoying. It would have the Gurmag Angler not on tap here, but you can still play a Shadow, which is an 8/8 already. So it would need to get jump blocked because one attack by the Shadow would kill David before the Mixstone would have any effect here.
This is quite true, but he has to draw into Death Shadow, and David already has his winning team on the board and just needs to draw into some protection, and he could get rid of Dominic's Force of Will with that play.
Because right now David has a
not.
bunch of pump spells, but he would just really like to draw a copy of Vines of the Vastwood or more counter spells here to protect his Inkmoth. This is actually not a Mixstone. What is it then? We're talking about Mixstone that long. I'm sorry, guys.
Happens.
Some old whiteboard cards, because I know about the Mixstone tech in some decks.
Okay, we see Brainstorm in response to Force of Will being cast by Dominic, exiling another Force of Will. Dominic is down to 4 life already.
Because I'm pretty sure that Mixstone actually costs 3 mana?
Yeah, I would have guessed that too, but I'm not quite sure either.
But it's definitely, this artifact here, this 1 mana card here is something that annoys Dominic enough to cast a Force on it.
Yeah. So, David's still deciding what to put back with his Brainstorm.
Yeah, basically the Brainstorm is a bit risky. What he wants to do is probably play the Brainstorm to find another blue card that he wants to pitch to the Force.
If he misses, the counter
If
goes
he
through.
misses, it's kind of awkward because then his spell gets countered, but we'll see. He's putting back a Wooded Foothills on top, which means that he's able to definitely shuffle away the second card next turn.
I think I don't see a second blue card in David's hand.
Oh.
Did he miss? He might have just missed there. Yeah, he's putting back Force of Will, or no?
He's still considering, he's still deciding. He has 2 cards put aside, but he's making sure those are really the cards he wants to put back here.
We will see for what he decides.
And yeah, Dominic in his hand here has got 1 Force of Will, 1 Fatal Push, and an unknown card, I believe, that we're not completely sure yet, because he cast Force Pitching Force.
Yeah.
He's putting back the cards, and yeah, the card that is probably not Mixstone and we're not completely sure what it is got countered.
Yes, and you drew into a second Inkmoth Nexus.
Which is, yeah, those Inkmoth Nexus might be quite annoying with all those pump spells, because Dominic, if Dominic only has answers to, has an answer 1 push, he might just die pretty quickly, because the annoying thing about Inkmoth Nexus, even if the third card in his hand is a blue card, you can't force the land drop. So we have 2 threats on board here. The annoying thing for David here is that it's quite mana intensive if he were to attack with both.
Yes.
He still has access to the Invigorates, but he does not have access to any of the other pump spells. And Dominic just takes the 1 poison here. I mean, or he just has 1 no blocks, but David is not pumping here.
No. Because he knows of Dominic's push in his hand, Fatal Push. And yeah, but maybe it would have been a good move to get rid of his Fatal Push, but also David has kind of full information of his draws.
I'm not confident about Dominic's chances here though, because he played a land and now his hand is just fetch land, push and force, which means that basically David can attack with both Nexi here, but David is on 4, so he has to be careful here. He can attack, if he attacks with both, he can he would have to entice Dominic to... Yeah, he's attacking with both. So if Dominic just doesn't do anything here, David needs to move. What David wants to engineer here is a way that Dominic uses his fatal push preemptively here. So if I were Dominic, I would not use the fatal push here, because then you would be dead. If you use the push here on the pumped nexus, he could invigorate, become immense the other nexus, which would be lethal.
Yeah, but Dominic is in a good situation with just having one infect counter and now maybe going up to 6 with lethal on board.
I would just let Invigorate resolve past priority and see what happens. This is still risky, but it's less risky than the other play here.
Dominic has to stay calm here and keep his removal in his hand. Yes, there is the second
And now
Invigorate.
he has to use the push, and if there's a protection spell, he's dead, because now he would take 9, he's at 1, which is 10, so he has to use the push here. But that was the right play, but Dominic definitely just has to hope that no protection spell like Vines of the Vastwood got drawn.
So push there, push resolves.
Yeah, so that was a nice 3-for-1 here, and he's just taking 1, but if David wants to become immense here, no, David is packing it. David is packing it in because he's dead on the backswing. So yeah, this was a nice calm play by Dominic here. If he prematurely would have cast the push after the first Invigorate, he would have just died.
Yes. We will see how the third game plays out. Dominic is rechecking his support tactic, maybe because of the card he saw, which we sadly don't know what it is.
I was so confident it was Meekstone. I was so confident it was Meekstone, which I'm not sure is even played. But it's Meekstone used to be some nice tech when Eldrazi Stompy was pretty big, and it's a sweet card. Not completely sure about that one. But we'll see. The thing is, here in game 3, David will be on the play, which definitely is a major advantage in this matchup here, because it lets him get more mana online. The Infect deck is surprisingly mana hungry, with the Inkmoth Nexi requiring a land drop and a mana to activate.
Yeah, and David has still to be able to protect his creatures for several days, or just deploy enough creatures to use all of Dominic's removal, and Dominic has to have an early Death Shadow and enough life loss to get it on land, so he can swing for the win before David can kill him with his Infect.
Yeah, Dominic wants to have a nice balance here between disruption and threats. He had the threat before on turn 3, which is good. He would like to have a threat at that point at the latest, deploy a threat turn 2 or turn 3, and also have disruption up, and then pressure David as quickly as possible. Because the Infect deck, it's very redundant. Most of the deck is either creatures, counter spells, or pump spells, slash protection spells. Vines of the Vastwood is doing both here. And generally speaking, the Infect deck gets to play, the legacy version of Infect gets to play less pump and protection spells, because you have Brainstorm and you have Ponder, so you have better cantrips, or you play cantrips, because modern Infect often doesn't play any cantrips, or not very many. And so you just have to find your 1 or 2 pump or protection spells. So we have starting hands here.
Yeah, well, looks like a turn 1 Noble Hierarch from David, which would be pretty nice in this situation. And what do we see here? Glycering Elf, or?
We definitely see Vines of the Vastwood here.
Yes.
And we saw that Dominic has access to at least 1 copy of Ponder and a couple of lands, which is already pretty good here. And he would like to be able to push this here and maybe have a Daze backup if David has a Daze of his own. Simply because, like we were talking about before, having the push on turn 1, especially on the play here, is even more annoying. It's 1 extra damage, it's 1 extra mana, all of that constantly each turn for just a very meager investment of 1 mana. Yes. But with Dominic going for the Overgrown Tomb here, with the Ponder in hand, I'm pretty damn sure that we will see here either a Deathwatch Shaman or a push.
So, both players still shuffling their deck. Now they're cutting it, and what will we see?
So we see, yeah, we saw the fetch first before the probe, thinning the deck a bit, doesn't want to draw another land, and here we see Vines of the Vastwood, Windswept Heath, Glistener Elf, and 2 copies of Brainstorm, which is pretty much a very, very strong hand from David here. He has, next turn he can cast Brainstorm with the fetch up, which is very nice, because if Dominic plays a a blocker on the ground. David can look for an evasive Infect threat and shuffle away the Glistener Elf instead. He can shuffle away the second Brainstorm if he just finds things he likes ready. So this is quite a nice hand. We see what Dominic can do here. He's drawing copy Force of Will, which is never bad.
And he has the Fatal Push in hand, and yeah.
And he knows that the push is good to go. So this is quite nice here, looking rather decent for Dominic at this point. But we see David has the Brainstorm, so we have to reconsider after he brainstorms.
Kind of the perfect start for both. Dominic wants to have a turn 1 push, and David wanted to have a turn 1 Noble Hierarch. Both got it.
Yeah, and he's not playing the Brainstorm, he's playing the Glistener Elf. He wants to make Dominic deal with it fast, and then use the Brainstorm when he has access to more information and when he's sure what he wants here.
So Dominic decides to not use his Force of Will there. Instead, he's playing Watery Grave untapped, going down to 13 life already, and Ponder.
He's looking at 3 cards with the Thoughtsis, another Ponder, and a Surgical Extraction. I don't like Surgical Extraction in this matchup, by the way. I think it's really bad, because in those matchups, you never hit the cards you want. He's not relying on his graveyard that much, and unless you have information to hit a card in the hand, it's just card disadvantage. I'm not a fan of the card in those. In general, in Legacy, in non-graveyard reliant combo matchups, I'm not a fan of the card Surgical Extraction.
So Dominic took the...
Took an Noble Hierarch, a second one, and we see just another copy of... And yeah, so we see a Brainstorm end of turn here by David, just shortcutting a bit.
Yeah.
While Dominic is passing the turn with still more threats to come. Unfortunately, we'll have to draw now. They drew the Thoughts as to draw that Surgically, which is not going to do anything after that second Brainstorm gets cast, or if there's mana up. It would be nice if you get Brainstorm, you get the second Brainstorm from hand. That would be one of the situations where the Surgically is really good, but it doesn't seem like that's likely to happen.
No. Or maybe if David has multiple of one Pump Spell or card draw or creature in hand, then maybe Surgical is a good way to deal with the cards.
Sure, but he doesn't have any Pump Spell or creature or anything in his graveyard that you could even target if he drew a copy of that. So
kind of a problem there.
But right now we have David resolving the Brainstorm, considering in his end step which cards he wants to put back. Generally, brainstorming on the end step is not something you want to do much in Legacy, but in combo decks it's often a very reasonable play. In fair decks it's mostly wrong, but in the combo decks you want to wait until you have the maximum information up. And here we see a Wasteland being drawn, which can just pretty much disrupt Dominic's development. You can either cut him off of green mana or of blue mana temporarily with 2 sources of black, but we see a Brainstorm being cast instead, which invalidates the Surgical play that might have been possible.
We will see what David will put back. But I think disrupting Dominic's mana is quite good here. Yeah,
I would definitely Wasteland the Watery Grave here and then see what else I want to do. But Wasteland the Watery Grave puts back Dominic a lot, and it cuts off days, it cuts off any of the cantrips. And the green mana here, all the green spells we've seen out of Dominic so far, except for that Sylvan Library which got sided out, was the Abrupt Decay, and the Deathray Shaman activation, so it seems like it's a blue-black deck
David,
with a splash for green.
Yes, so David attacks for 1 and plays another Glistening Elf.
And another Brainstorm here, so no Wasteland yet.
Misty Rainforest. You wanted to say another Misty Rainforest.
Yeah, sorry, it was a Misty Rainforest. And here we see...
Toxic Deluge.
Yeah, we see Toxic Deluge being cast. Not sure how much life he wants to pay here. He wants to pay 4 life or 5 life?
I could not see it clearly, I'm sorry.
I mean, 5 life would be reasonable, so he can't invigorate one of the Glistener Elves. Yeah, he's paying 5 life. He's playing around Invigorate here.
What do we see here?
We see an Invigorate.
Yes. And both die.
Maybe Dominic just paid 4 life? I'm not completely sure what happened, because his hand gesture here strongly looked like he was going for 4, and now we see a Surgical on the Invigorate. And we see the last card in hand is a Vines of Vastwood. So this is pretty grindy here. Both players just destroying resources. We didn't... It seems like the Wasteland that we saw in David's hand before was put back here.
And is not getting shuffled away.
Yeah, because of the surgical. So we see all the invigorates go, and right now we have 5 damage on the board here for David, with Dominic being tapped out. So it's enough to put him up to 6. So Become Immense off the top is lethal. It can't be another invigorate off the top. It should have been lethal, but all of those have been removed.
Yes. But I think Dominic has Force of Will backup, or at least he had one Force of Will in hand
before. It definitely has a Force of Will, not sure about the blue card. And we see the Bajuka block from the sideboard, which gets rid of Dominic's graveyard. It's annoying here because it makes casting any quick Gurmag Angler from this position unlikely.
Yes, kind of. I think he drew...
Yeah, there's no blue card for the Force. There's no blue card for the Force here. We have a Dash Shadow though, which is great. It's an 8/8, and it can block. And it can swing, and it's not reliant on the non-existent graveyard.
No, I didn't see another bond. Yeah, of course there's another bond.
It was a Ponder. Okay, sure. So he had the blue card, but again, he's getting... I would just get the second Force here. This is a bit annoying because the other cards suck. One of them is a fetch land, so you have to draw 1 land that you don't need, but it means that you have Force backup with your Shadow here.
Yes, and actually a 3-turn clock, I would say. Okay, now David has a jump blocker. And can't basically attack. He has to say go. He needs to draw into something, and David with his Force of Will, Dominic with his Force of Will backup can just attack.
Dominic needs to attack here, yes, because he will not take lethal, because he can just force any pump spell that would be lethal. And now David is taking it, because you can't block at this point yet, you're not winning the game then. And we see David needs to draw something here, that's good. We see him attack. Dominic will just say, yeah, sure. He's taking 2 with the Exalted trigger here, but still 6 more poison to go for David to win the game here.
Yes, and Dominic can already hardcast Force of Will.
Yeah, that's nice. He does not want to fetch end of turn because he wants to Force of Will up. And now he's shortcutting fetching twice, because there will probably not be any spell in response.
Yes, and he can attack for lethal. So David has to block with his Noble Hierarch now.
Exactly, he just wants to, we see he has access to Tropical Island in his list at least, not sure if his access to Underground Sea too. What we see here is Dominic just not getting any shocklands, it's just going down to 3 because that's exactly lethal, there's no need to take any more damage.
No, because David can kill him with Noble Hierarch attack, and
the Noble Hierarch had the jump block here, so it doesn't matter because the Noble Hierarch was bound to go, but still there's no reason to. There might be a future Noble Hierarch.
We will see, but it looks like this game is over in a short amount of time, because both players are threatening each other, and Dominic has 2 Force of Will. Oh, okay, we're seeing the Noble Hierarch. Force of Will being cast from Dominic.
Hard cast Force of Will, always nice. A card that you wouldn't ever play in draft, but when that mode comes stapled to your free counter spell, then it's very valuable to use. So we see the Noble Hierarch getting countered here, which means that if David goes for it here, he can do 9 damage if Dominic doesn't have a removal spell, and then if he didn't produce another creature, he's dead. So we just have David pass here. He has to jump back with his Glisten Elf because he doesn't want to die. And now we see Dominic attack, and we have a block here.
And I think Dominic threw a Gurmag Angler. Is he deploying it? Yes. David doesn't have access to creatures with haste, or?
Nope, there is no hasty creatures here. But we see another Glistener Elf here, and he's not deploying a Gurmag Angler because he would not have had enough mana to have that Force of Will up. But he didn't need to because he had lethal on the board anyways, and he counters the Hierarch, and that is the game.
See you next match.